And even the 82nd claimed that they, and rightfully so, that they liberated the first city, which they did. The city was St. Miraculous, and it was a large city. And it took them all day, and they didn't liberate that until late that night, midnight. So they did liberate the first major city in Europe, but we liberated the first village at daybreak. So we went from there. We made the attack, and we held that for a day, and then the 4th Division broke through to us, and we went on down the parallel with the English Channel till we got to exit 2, which is where Hubert turned right, and we went in towards Sainte Marie de Mont. Have any of you ever been there? No? Well, one gentleman back here. There's where we filled our canteen, and there was a mixture of, by this time there was Able Company and Easy Company, and we filled our canteens at the pump, but then there again when Ambrose said, well, it was Easy Company. And so now it is Easy Company because you can't stand up and yell, no, I was there too. But so you're in the picture, but they don't care. But so we went on from there up to was a little town called Angeville-au-Plain. And we fought there. There was some fierce battles in between. We even ran into the Russian horse cavalry, and they came down on us on horseback, swinging a saber in one hand, a Schmeiser in the other. But the day of the horse is gone. You know, it's better to be down the bottom of a ditch shooting that guy out of the saddle than it is to be up in the saddle. So we had quite a battle there, and this battle went on, and we fought the SS and the 6th parachute, Hermann Goering parachute, and went back and forth there for a while, and it got pretty terrible, I think, because I know I was going into houses, kicking doors open and shooting. But the thing is, out of all the battles I had participated in, probably hundreds of battles itself, not within each campaign. And to this day, I cannot remember what happened in that little town. It just all left me. But I could probably be thankful for it. And because terrible things went on. Then we went on from there, and we got, Colonel Ballard was out in the field trying to muster troops. We were scattered all over the place. By the way, I landed 12 miles from my drop zone, what we call a DZ. And so we went to Colonel Ballard's aid, and he said they were making an attack and he needed all the men he could get. So we joined him, we went in the attack, and we drove the Germans back through the hedgerows towards a large brick farmhouse. And then we found later that that was a German command post. And we had a man that came in, he was a Navy man, and he jumped with us. He didn't jump with me, but he jumped with, I think, the 501. And he had a 300 radio set, and he called for fire on the house. And the first rounds went kind of over the house, and he shortened it up. And the second volley of 8-inch shells from the, was a cruiser, Quincy. They fired 8-inch shells, and they hit right on us. They killed 8 men right around me, and I wasn't hit. And of course, the observer made corrections, and the next volley hit the house, and it would just turn to dust. So we went on with the attack, and we went on through up to Le Drury. Le Drury is one of those little towns that still has the wash pond out there with the rocks on it, and this is where the women go out, and they wash their clothes by pounding them on these rocks, and it has running water. So that's where they, but you know, I found out that all these women have washing machines, and really they keep up this 2,000-year-old tradition, not because they get their clothes cleaner, but because they get there side by side to pound their clothes on the rocks and find out who's doing what with which to whom. And the electric washer saves hours on that too. So anyway, it's still there. It's still there. I was just there in May, and that little wash thing, if you women want to take your clothes, you know, you're welcome to it. But it's there. And anyhow, we took a break. We've been fighting since the day before, on the 6th, and this was now the 7th. And so we leaned up against this tall wall, and I told later, when I went back there later, I mentioned that the French was trying to keep the Vikings out. The Vikings made regular visits into Normandy, but so the King of France gave them Normandy. That's why they call it Normandy, because it gave it to the Normans. And they said, no, the Vikings built those walls to keep the French out, so whichever. So we leaned up against this wall about 10 feet high, and right across from us, about 12 feet away, was a very large hedgerow. Well, we had pushed these Germans back, but we learned right then and there the Germans are very, very famous for one maneuver. You can push them to the end of the world, and the minute that you stop and take a break, they do a 180 and they come back in full force, right now. And how they organize so quick, I don't know to this day, but they charge right into you. And they did, they crawled up and they was firing at us from anywhere from 4 to 6 feet away with Schmeisers. They cut the men down like you wouldn't believe. Well, with this 10-foot wall behind us and the hedgerows in front of us, we only had one way to go, and we went straight into them. And we charged in them, and I remember we killed men there right face to face, and Rennisdale killed 2 of them with a Tommy gun. And we made it over the hedgerow, and we started the attack, and going through the hedgerows, our attack scattered. We fragmented. And when we got where we thought was way behind the rest of them, because you couldn't see any others, and we met, Hundley and I met Trotter, and it was Barrington. So they were carrying a machine gun on a tripod, and so we offered to help them, and they took the offer, and we carried the machine gun. I had the 2 back legs, and we was carrying the machine gun while it was still mounted, and plus the ammunition, and Trotter kept saying, hurry, 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 and we kept running. And then we got in a machine gun fire, and Barrington was hit, and we patched him up and left him. So the rest of us went on. And we came out on a road where we could look down to the left after crossing a number of hedgerows, and we couldn't see anybody of our own men. And we looked down to the left, and we could see it going down towards the Douve River. And there's 4 rivers and 4 bridges. Well, there was 4. The Germans blew the second one. So there's 4 rivers and 3 bridges. But we were looking down there, and about that time, there was some Germans came out from behind us. Now, this is a tricky thing about Normandy. You can be running down this hedgerow, and unbeknownst to you, on the other side of the hedgerow is an entire German army, maybe even armor, but you don't know that. So as we came out on the road, suddenly these Germans who had been running down the other side of the same hedgerow broke out, and they started crossing the road. So since I was on the back end of the machine gun, I flopped it on the hedgerow and started firing. I could see men falling. And 2 men came out of the hedgerows behind us. One was Hagenbuck, and the other was Shoot Johnson. And I've been to these reunions, and I've asked everybody I know, I said, what was Shoot Johnson's real first name? And nobody knows. He's still known as Shoot Johnson. But they joined in with us. So actually there was 5 of us that ended up fighting in that particular battle. And the Germans kept coming across, and without going on an angle, they didn't look back to see us, and we were shooting them from the back as they were climbing up the other hill. So Hagenbuch, well, his brother corrected me. He says Hagenbuch. He said it's German. So I said Hagenbuch, and I took the machine gun down on the road, right on the pavement. We was firing from the center of the road. The Germans, the ones that got across, set up 3 machine guns, and they cross-fired on us. Finally, they hit my gun. It jerked to one side, and I discovered later there was 2 bullets through the barrel jacket, and 3 bullets went through my tripod, and 1 bullet went through Hagenbuch's head, killed him instantly. And so I took the gun back over the hedgerow, and about that time, a little Stuart tank came along, and he came up the road, and he says, do you men need help? And we said, yes. So he was mounted with a 37 millimeter, which is a little wee gun, you know, supposed to be a cannon. And that's pretty small when you figure the fighter planes today carry a 40 millimeter machine gun. So he helped us until he expended all of his ordnance. He was completely out of ammunition. He said, well, he said, I have to go back to Utah Beach to rearm. And I said, don't forget us. And he said, I won't. And he drove back down the road, and I heard an explosion, and a German in a ditch hit him with a Panzerfaust and killed every man in the tank. So anyway, we couldn't get help to him, so his body stayed sitting upright in that tank for 3 days and nights. And it got to where about this time, Normandy was coming in, the beaches, and the people were bringing trucks up with supplies, so they would always ask, how do I get to this point or that point? Everybody would say, well, go up to where the dead man is and turn right, or go up to where the dead man is and turn left. And he was sitting up in the tank, and he was very visible.